something from someone who has nothing to steal. That's real.
What's going on, guys? It's me, Bubba213, and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. In today's video, we're going to be going over the final skill tree of Borderlands 3 characters that are released at launch. The Siren class, Amara. Amara, from what I know about her, is a melee siren, and has a lot of abilities to augment, the melee style. So yeah. Let's go over her 3 skill trees and see what she does. Starting off, we're going over the mystical assault tree. Alright, so the first action skill is phase cast. Amara sends for an astral projection of herself, dealing damage to everything in its path. Next up, we have a passive ability called Do Harm. Killing an enemy grants Amara a stack of rush. Activating an action skill consumes all rush stacks. For every rush stack consumed, Amara's action skill damage is temporarily increased, and that stacks up to 5. Next up, we have Fast Hand and Fast Hands. Amara's reload speed, weapon swap speed, and mode switch speed are improved. Next up, we have Violent Capacity. Applying a status effect grants Amara a stack of rush. Activating her action skill consumes the rush stacks. For every rush stack consumed, Amara's status effect chance is temporarily increased. Next up, we have Electricity. Amara gains increased reload speed for every stack of rush after consuming rush stacks. The bonuses are increased for a few seconds. Now we can Transcend. Amara gains a stack. Gains increased accuracy and critical hit damage for a few seconds after activating her action skill. Next up, we have Restless. Amara gains increased action skill cooldown. Next up, we have Ascendant. All action skill augments have great increased effects. Next up, we have Swim Rest. Amara gains improved fire rate and charge time. Next up, we have Laid Bare. Enemies take increased damage from all sources for a few seconds after being damaged by Amara's action skill. Next up, we have Wrath. Amara gains increased gun damage. This effect is increased after she activates her action skill for a few seconds. Next up, we have Remnant. When Amara kills an enemy with a gun or an action skill, she creates a homing projectile that seeks out a new enemy, damaging her enemy, dealing her action skill element damage. And overkill damage is added to the projectile's damage. Not really sure what overkill damage is, but we'll see. Awakening. Amara's rush stacks gain increased effectiveness. Next up, we have Avatar. Amara's action skill can be activated while it's cooled down. While it's cooling down, this skill may be used only once per cooldown. Additionally, increase Amara's maximum rush stacks. Additionally, if Amara's action skill kills the enemy, it refunds half of her rush stacks. Moving on to the augments, we have Soul Sap. A portion of all damage dealt by Amara's action skill is returned to a nearby ally as health. Next up, we have Deliverance. Amara sends for an astral projection of herself, dealing damage to everything in his path. Whenever Amara's actual projection damages the enemy or an object, it releases homing elemental projectiles that triggers her action skill elemental effect on enemies. Next up, we have Stillness of Mind. Enemies damaged by Amara's action skill are phase locked until their damage or the duration ends. However, the action skill cooldown is increased. If Amara targets an enemy with Phase Grasp, not sure what that is yet. I don't think we spoke about that. Phase Grasp. Enemies near the grass target are phase locked. Next, we have Reverberation. Amara sends for an astral projection of herself, dealing damage to everything in his path. Astral projection deals increased damage to every enemy it hits. Finally, of the mystical assault tree, we have Tandana. Amara sends for an actual projection of herself. If it hits the target, it explodes, damaging all nearby enemies. Okay, true. I don't really play sirens like that, so I'm not really sure how to feel about this. That's more my friend James' speed. But yeah, it seems like an okay tree. Moving on to Fist of the Elements. The first action skill in this is Phase Grasp. There we go. That makes sense now. Amara summons a giant fist that bursts from the ground, locking all targets. Locks the target enemy in place for a few seconds. Next, we have a passive ability. Amara's status effect deals increased damage over time and have increased duration. Her action skill effect deals further increased damage. Stacks up to 5. Next, we have Steady Hands. Amara gains increased weapon handling and accuracy. Next up, we have Infusion. It converts a portion of damage dealt into her action skill element. Next up, we have Tempest. Amara deals increased elemental damage. Shock damage is further increased. Next up, we have Illuminated Fist. Amara gains melee damage, and her melee damage is converted to her action skill element. Wildfire. Whenever Amara applies a status effect to a nearby enemies, it has a chance to spread to a status effect to an enemy. It has a chance to spread to a nearby enemy. Her first augment of the Fist of Elements tree is Soulfire. Converts her action skill to incinerate damage. Next up, we have Dread. Amara's gun damage is increased for a few seconds after an enemy is grasped. Another one of her augments, the Eternal Fist. It's an action skill. Amara summons a giant fist that bursts from the ground, locks the targeted enemy in place for a few seconds. Whenever the grasped enemy is killed, the fist seeks out a new target and grasps the new target. The next augment is Allure. Amara's action skill creates a singularity that pulls enemies in. I like singularities. That sounds good. Next, we have Indiscriminate. Amara's bullets that damage the enemy has a chance to ricochet and deal damage to other nearby enemies. Ricochet, chance, and damage are increased if the target is affected by Phase Grasp or Stillness of Mind. Next up, we have Deep Well. Amara gains magazine size with elemental weapons. Next up, we have Cataract. It's called something. The passive ability, whenever a marker triggers an elemental effect on an enemy, the target dies. That enemy explodes, dealing her attuned element damage along with any other element that is currently inflicted upon the enemy. This skill has a short cooldown. Next up, Ties That Bind. Amara summons Giant Fist, the Phase Grasp. Enemies that are grasped, enemies near the grasp target are linked, and any damage dealt to, I guess, the grasp target is transferred to the linked targets that are shared between the linked targets. Moving on, we have Sustainment. Amara gains life steal whenever she deals elemental damage to her weapon. Next up, we have Conflux. Whenever Amara applies a status effect to an enemy, she gains a chance to randomly electrocute, ignite, or melt that enemy. And her final augment for this tree is Fist Over Matter. Amara summons a giant fist that bursts from the ground, locking targets. Okay, that's grasp. Phase grasp. After grasping the target, the large fist appears and constantly smashes the area, dealing damage to nearby enemies. The final skill in her Fist of the Elements tree is Forceful Expression. Amara's guns deal bonus elemental damage based on her action skill cooldown. Bonus elemental damage. Oh, yeah. Alright. Moving on to Amara's final tree, and the final tree of the ones we're going to be reviewing for the initial characters of Borderlands 3, we have Brawl. The first action skill in the Brawl skill tree is Phase Slam. Amara leaps into the air and slams the ground, dealing damage to all nearby enemies. Next, we have Root to Rise. Amara gains increased maximum health. Next up, we have Personal Space. Amara's weapon slots deal bonus damage based on the distance to her target. The closer the target, the greater the bonus. Next, we have Why didn't I move? Oh, there we go. Now we have Charity. Amara constantly regenerates health. The lower health, the more powerful the regeneration. After using an action skill, the bonus is doubled for a few seconds. Moving on, we have Arms Deal. It's a passive ability. Amara deals increased splash damage and takes reduced splashed damage. Next, we have Samisara. Whenever Amara deals damage to an enemy with her action skill, she adds a stack of Samisara. For every stack of Samisara, Amara gains increased gun damage and health regeneration for a few seconds. The stacks decay after a few seconds. Next, we have Helpful Hands for a few seconds after using her action skill. Amara's arms remain active and grant damage reduction. Moving on, we have Blight Tiger. This is her first augment. It converts Amara's action skill to corrosive damage. Next up, the next action skill we have is Fracture. Amara summons a line of fists that erupt from the ground, dealing damage to enemies in front of Amara. Moving on to the next passive ability, we have Mindfulness. Whenever Amara takes damage, she gains a stack of Mindfulness. For every stack of Mindfulness, Amara gains improved shield recharge, regeneration delay, and movement speed. The stacks decay after a few seconds. Next, we have Find Your Center. Amara gains increased melee damage. Additionally, for a few seconds after using action skill, she has increased melee range. Moving on to Vigor, a kill skill. I swear this is her first kill skill. I don't see many kill skills in this tree, but alright. This is a kill skill. Killing an enemy with Amara's action skill grants all nearby allies increased movement speed for a few seconds. Next, we have Revitalization. Revitalization? Yeah, that was right. Amara's action skill creates a Nova when it damages enemies, dealing damage to all nearby enemies. Next up, another passive, we have One with Nature. Amara gains increased maximum health, elemental damage resistance, and action skill element. Moving on to her second to final action skill augment, we have Downfall. Amara leaps into the air and shoots an elemental beam below her for a brief second, followed by a slam. That sounds cool. Next up, we have Do Unto Others. Whenever an enemy damages Amara, she automatically throws an energy orb back at them, dealing action skill elemental damage. This skill has a short cooldown of 8 seconds. Next up, we have Jab Cross. Whenever Amara deals melee damage to an enemy, she gains increased action skill damage. The increased damage and increased damage for a few seconds. We have Guardian Angel. Whenever Amara enters Fight for Your Life, she immediately gains a second win. Excuse me? Wait, what? Whenever Amara enters Fight for Your Life, she immediately gains a second win, restores her health, and creates an action skill elemental Nova that may knock back enemies. It has a long cooldown, 2 minutes. Okay. So that skill has a 2-minute cooldown. Moving on to the last action skill augment, it's called Glamour. Enemies damaged by Amara's action skill become confused and temporarily attack their allies. However, the action skill cooldown is increased. If Amara targets an enemy with face grabs, the enemies are grasped and the targets are confused as well. Moving on to the final skill, we have Blitz, Melee Overdrive. Pressing V while aiming at an enemy makes Amara dash a short distance forward and perform a special melee strike, dealing elemental melee damage. If a Blitz melee attack kills an enemy, the Blitz cooldown is immediately reset. I wonder how far that range is. That sounds really cool. I think this is my favorite skill of the tree. But yeah, all in all, that is Amara's skill tree. Yeah, so yeah, that's it for the skill tree reviews until they release another character after the game comes out. I'll be doing that too. But that is it for the initial 4 character skill trees. If you want to see more Borderlands 3 content on the channel, which there will definitely be more Borderlands content. This channel practically will be Borderlands, mostly all Borderlands, a little bit of GTA involved too, because I'm enjoying that game at the moment. But yeah, September 13th, be ready, because that's all that this channel is going to be uploading constantly. Yeah, that is it for me, guys. I'm probably going to make a couple more Borderlands videos because I have some guides to do for day 1 legendary weapons in the game. But we'll get to that later down the line. That is really it for this video. If you liked the video, please leave a like down below. If you want to see more on the channel, please subscribe. And if there's anything you'd like me to see or do or speak about in a video, let me know down in that comment section. But guys, as for me, it's been Bubba213, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a fantastic day.